Welcome to Mindful with Minaa, where we explore how mindfulness can enhance your relationships and well-being. I'm your host, Minaa B, a licensed social worker, mental health educator, and author. Through insightful discussions, I will guide you towards self-awareness and self-efficacy, empowering you to effectively manage your relationships, reduce burnout, and be more present with yourself. So let's jump into today's episode. What's up, Mindful community? Welcome back to another episode of Mindful with Minaa. And today I want to talk to you about social anxiety, something that is impacting people both personally and professionally. And I think it's time we unpack what social anxiety is and what you can be doing to manage it, especially because it is October. And if you live in a region where it starts to get cold during this season, you really want to do what you can to manage social anxiety so that you don't end up experiencing social isolation that can then lead to experiencing seasonal depression. So, first, I'm going to break down what social anxiety is, because a lot of people think that social anxiety means that they're afraid to socialize, and that's actually not what social anxiety is. Social anxiety is an intense fear of being judged, embarrassed, or humiliated in social situations. And so people with social anxiety disorder often avoid social events or gatherings because of that intense fear of judgment. And when avoidance isn't possible, they might feel incredibly anxious in these social settings. They may also experience physical symptoms like sweating, trembling, gut imbalances, stomach hurting all the time, nausea, and even finding it difficult to speak or think clearly because their nervous system is dysregulated in those settings. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, approximately 15 million adults in the U.S. experience social anxiety disorder. That is about 7% of the population, making it one of the most common anxiety disorders. What's particularly challenging is that many people with social anxiety know that their fears are irrational, but that doesn't make it any easier to manage. And I'm sure we can think about that in many areas of our lives where we think about certain things that we know it's irrational, and it still gets in the way of us excelling or socializing. Social anxiety can affect both our personal and professional life. In personal settings, you might avoid parties, family gatherings, or even one-on-one social interactions. You might even avoid dating because you fear being judged or saying the wrong thing. Now, in professional settings, people with social anxiety may not speak up in meetings. They may also experience imposter syndrome. They may avoid networking, which is required sometimes to build social capital so that you can excel in your professional life. And it also might make people avoid pursuing leadership opportunities. It can be so limiting, but the good news is that it is treatable and manageable, but like everything in life, you have to take action. Now, as I said earlier, we are in the fall. I live in New York City. It's already getting cold. And so this is the season where we really have to start being mindful of seasonal depression. As the days get shorter and the weather turns colder, managing social anxiety becomes even more crucial. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 5% of U.S. adults experience seasonal depression, and the clinical term for that is seasonal affective disorder. And women are 4 times more likely than men to be affected. But what's the connection between social anxiety and seasonal depression? Well, when you already struggle with social anxiety, it's easy to isolate yourself during the colder, darker months. The reality is, it is much harder to force yourself to go outside when it's 15 degrees out versus when it's 90 degrees. Also, our social climate looks different. The things that we're doing in the summertime, such as going to the beach, going to the pool, eating outdoors, that looks completely different in the wintertime. So you also have to struggle with getting dressed appropriately for the colder weather, but then you also have to be very mindful of the social gatherings that you attend because they need to be outdoor, it needs to be warm. So the opportunities to socialize look very, very different. And that makes it easier to just say, you know what, I'm gonna stay home. Who wants to go outside in the cold? If I have to drive, who wants to pump gas in the cold? Who wants to wait for public transportation? Who wants to be using the New York City subway, waiting for a train to come? Like thinking about all of the work and labor that it literally takes to leave the house during the winter, it is a lot, okay? I am a New Yorker and I don't even want to do it sometimes. And so when you struggle with social anxiety, you're also thinking about all of those different elements that starts to become just too overwhelming. And it's easier to just say, I'm going to skip this altogether. But what we don't realize when we say we're going to skip out, we're going to stay home, and we're just going to cuddle up under our blankets and we're going to drink hot chocolate and be in the heat and watch movies, what we're not thinking about is loneliness and how it's a vicious cycle. Social anxiety leads to isolation, and isolation increases the risk of developing or worsening depression. That's why managing social anxiety during the winter months is especially important. Not only can it help you maintain your social connections, but it can prevent that spiral into depression. However, I know it's easier said than done. So I want to share some concrete tools and strategies that you can use to manage social anxiety, both personally and professionally. The first thing that you have to do is challenge your negative thoughts. One of the key aspects of social anxiety is negative self-talk. You might have thoughts like, everyone's going to think I'm awkward. What if I say something stupid? What if nobody likes my outfit? What if I'm not cool enough to keep up with certain conversations? What am I going to contribute to these conversations? And these thoughts are often exaggerated and not based in reality. To manage social anxiety, you literally have to start by challenging those negative thoughts. This is where CBT work comes in. You have to engage in cognitive reframing. You have to challenge the things that you're saying. You also have to realize that often we're judging the future from the present moment. So you have no idea what's going to happen at that social gathering unless you attend it. So that's the first thing that you have to remember. It can be so easy to be in your house getting dressed saying, oh my God, everyone's going to judge me. Everyone's going to be thinking about me. Everyone is going to have something negative to say about me. And you're not even in the setting yet. And you're already jumping to conclusions about what's going to happen. Another thing that I want to highlight often about negative thoughts that a lot of us don't think about is, do you know how entitled you sound when you enter certain spaces assuming everybody's thinking about you like that? Like, literally think about it. We get so caught up on our own stuff that we start to believe that we are the center of attention. We literally say things like, I'm going to be awkward and I'm going to look silly or I'm going to say something stupid. But you don't realize sometimes that people aren't really giving you the energy you think they're giving you. People aren't paying you that much attention. And there is a level of entitlement sometimes that our negativity has where we become so self-centered in our negativity that we assume everybody's thinking about us. When we walk in the door, all the heads are going to turn and everyone's going to think, oh my God, why did that person wear that? What were you thinking? You sound crazy. Do you know how much energy it takes to be so self-centered sometimes? Literally think about how our negative thoughts really give us main character syndrome. So I want you to do the work of challenging yourself, but also remember, seriously, you are worthy, you are valuable, but you also have to remember that you are not the main character when you walk in the room. And I think that can be so freeing to know that I'm going to walk into this place and people probably won't even be giving me the amount of attention I'm giving myself. Okay? And so that is one of the ways that you can be challenging the negative mindset that you have when you are thinking about engaging or socializing with others. Another thing that is very important is practicing gradual exposure. If you have social anxiety, does it make sense for you to try to force yourself to attend a large conference where there might be 5,000 plus people and try to network in that space? Probably not. What you need to do is gradual exposure, which involves slowly and systematically facing your fears in manageable doses. So start small. If you're anxious about meeting new people, try going to your local coffee shop and having a brief conversation with the barista. Go into the local coffee shop and just sit there on your laptop and realize nobody's looking at me like that. You can literally be in that setting and realize people are conversing either over the phone or with their peers, or their faces are in their laptop and nobody is actually thinking about you. So I think coffee shops can be a really great start. But another thing could just be attending social gatherings that are really small and intimate before you work your way up to being a part of larger experiences that's going to require you to socialize with numerous people. Gradual exposure helps your brain realize that the situations you fear aren't as threatening as they seem, and over time, the anxiety you feel in these situations can decrease. Now, the next thing you need to be doing when you experience social anxiety is focus on connection and not perfection. And that is because social anxiety often makes us very hyper focused on ourselves and how we're coming across, whether we're making a good impression or whether people like us. But shifting your focus to the other person in the interaction can help ease some of that anxiety. So instead of worrying about saying the perfect thing, focus on making a genuine connection. Ask the person that you're talking to questions about them. Stop thinking about yourself in that moment. Ask open-ended questions, listen actively, and show interest in other people. By focusing on connection rather than perfection, you'll not only feel less anxious, but you'll also have more meaningful interactions, because the goal of this is to get to know other people. And like I said earlier, to decenter yourself in those environments. Everything is not going to be about you. And so when you enter a space, focus on making a connection with someone. Focus on asking that person questions about themselves instead of assuming this is all about me, because honestly, it's not all about you. Another very important thing is to prepare. Sometimes a little preparation can go a long way in managing social anxiety. If you know you have an upcoming event, take some time to mentally prepare. Ask yourself, what are some grounding techniques that you can do if you are in an environment that gets overwhelming? I believe that meditation and learning to train your breaths and focus on your breathing to regulate your nervous system can be very crucial in helping your nervous system get back to a state of regulation and bring your body to its window of tolerance. So preparing in advance can be helpful. Another thing that you can do is say, I am going to practice gradual exposure by entering this space, but I'm only going to be there for an hour. That's how you're preparing. I'm going to go to this event, and all I'm going to do is stay for an hour. Now, if you're there and you're enjoying yourself, you can stay much longer, but prepare for an ending. I would also say that if you're coupled or you're entering an event with another peer, have a code word that you can say to the person or even text to the person to let them know, listen, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm ready to leave. Another thing that you can do is regulate your body temperature. A lot of people don't know that when you're experiencing anxiety, your body temperature starts to rise, hence why we start to experience a lot of sweating all over the body. And so you can wash your hands under very cold water, or I would also encourage you to have a glass of iced cold water. Now, when we're in certain settings, alcohol is often presented. One of the things that we have to remember about alcohol is that it works as a depressant. And so if you're feeling anxious, you don't want to go from one extreme end of panic to another extreme end of fatigue and depression. So alcohol may not regulate your nervous system the way you think it's going to regulate yourself. And so alcohol may not be the best choice if your body is already in a state of panic panic because alcohol just isn't going to serve your nervous system the way that you need it to be served. So try to skip alcohol, go for the mocktail, or like I said, drink some ice cold water as a way to regulate your body temperature. Another thing that you can do, as I said before, is some grounding techniques. A grounding technique that I love is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, where you identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This helps shift your focus away from the anxiety and back to the present moment. If focusing on all of these things is too overwhelming for you, I like to focus on one at a time. So I might say, what is something that I can touch right now? I might put my hand on the table. I might put my hand on the chair. I might even touch my sweater. If I have a hoodie on or something like that, I might start to play with the strings on the hoodie. There are certain things that you can do as a way to get yourself out of your mind because, again, social anxiety really stems from our thoughts, that fear of being ridiculed, that fear of being judged. So what's happening is we're stepping out of the present and going into our mind. And what we need to do is get out of our mind to be in the present. So grounding techniques can be very, very efficient as a way to manage anxiety and regulate your nervous system. Now, let's talk briefly about social anxiety in professional settings. Whether it's speaking up in a meeting, networking at events, or dealing with workplace dynamics, social anxiety can make it difficult to thrive professionally. So one strategy here is to set small, achievable goals. Literally everything that I just shared can be applied to the work setting. If you're anxious about contributing in meetings, challenge yourself to literally just say one thing. Practice gradual exposure in these environments, even if it's just a short comment or asking one question. Over time, those small wins can help build your confidence. Another thing that you can do is start writing out thoughts that you're having and challenge them in a journal, and also write out things that you want to do differently in the workplace. What is the anxiety that is coming up for you? And what is an alternative to that anxiety? And also, what can you be doing to regulate your nervous system in a professional setting so that anxiety is not causing you to shut down? So one of the things I want you to understand is that social anxiety can feel all-consuming, but it doesn't have to control your life. Whether you're managing anxiety in your personal relationships or professional life, remember here, the key is to take small steps, challenge your thoughts, and build strategies that work for you. Most importantly, like I said earlier, as we head into the colder, darker winter months, remember that staying connected despite the anxiety is crucial for your mental health. Isolating yourself may feel like the safer and comfortable option, but it can lead to feelings of loneliness and seasonal depression. So instead, take it slow, be gentle with yourself, and use these tools every single day so that you can learn to navigate social situations with more ease. So that is all for today's episode. If you found this episode helpful, please remember to leave a review, subscribe, and if you're listening on Spotify, I would love for you to share some comments on how you are learning to manage social anxiety. Also remember to follow me on social media and subscribe to my newsletter for more mental health resources for your personal growth. Until next time.